not to be confused with a Gose and often mistaken for just another sour beer. The salty and coriander-infused Gose, G-O-S-E, is a regional beer with a ton of individual personality and an interesting history. Gose was first produced about 1,000 years ago in Goslar, which is a small town in the Lower Saxony region of Germany and is home to the Gose River. The river itself contributed a unique saltiness to the beer due to its high saline levels, and for the longest time it was naturally fermented in a bulb-shaped glass bottle. The yeasts would fall into the bottle and oftentimes would create a yeast cork that would inhibit oxygenation of the beer until it was ready to be served, although just as often the cork would pop out and make a mess. Interestingly, the fermentation often occurred at the tavern, where it would be served instead of at the brewery like most beers nowadays. Being a regional specialty, Gose was exempt from the rule of the Reinheitsgebot, or Bavarian beer purity law of 1516. In 1738, the small-town brewers of Goslar found a burgeoning market for their beer in nearby Leipzig and Halle, and within a few short decades there were over 80 Gose taverns called Goseschenkes operating in the region. This resulted in Leipzig earning the name the Gose City. In 1824, a brewer named Johann Gottlieb Godeke started brewing Gose in the town of Dölnitz, and that town supplanted Goslar as the Gose brewing capital of the region. Their beer was so popular at the time that taverns wishing to serve it needed to join a waiting list in order to sell the product. And by the end of the 1800s, Godeke was brewing over 1 million bottles of Gose per year. Now, while this sounds impressive, it was about half of the output most breweries were putting out at this time, making it more of a regional phenomenon. At the start of World War II, Gose production ceased along with many other German beers, and the Dölnitz brewery shut down and remained closed even after the end of the war. Then in 1949, a former employee of the Dölnitz brewery, Friedrich Wörsler, began brewing small amounts of Gose at a brewery in Leipzig using notes he took while employed before the war. Upon his death, Wörsler passed the recipe on to his son, but German tastes had shifted to those of the communist beer conglomerate at the time, and the brewery closed in 1966. When the Berlin Wall fell and opened East Germany to a capitalist market, the legacy of the Reinheitsgebot once again imposed on the beer's resurrection by limiting ingredients to just water, yeast, hops, and barley. Given that a key ingredient of Gose is coriander, the style remained in oblivion. That is, until Germany joined the European Union in 1987 and the beer purity law was repealed, opening the market to adjunct flavors including the use of coriander. Just 1 year prior to this, a man named Lothar Goldhorn discovered an old Goseschenkes and began restoring it with the intent of resurrecting the Gose style when the beer law allowed it. Germans were put off at first by the funky aroma and lactic sour flavors, but were assured it was safe to drink, and they even saluted the consumption of a Gose with its own cheers. They would say the word Gosana to celebrate the drink with each glass. From there, the Gose began to spread around the world, and despite water and malt sources being so very different now than they were then, the modern Gose has a similar flavor to those brewed in the 1700s in the small town of Goslar with its salty Gose River.